Hello, dear listeners. You have entered the heart of a mystery that has been hidden for decades in the shadows of one of the darkest periods in history. And together, we will travel through Argentina, a country where the past is not just archived, it still whispers of betrayal, of secrets that are ready to unleash a global storm. This podcast is not just a chronicle of events. It is an attempt to solve a puzzle that history itself has created. We will talk about 83 boxes discovered in the State Archives of Buenos Aires. Boxes containing documents of the Third Reich. What were they doing there? Who brought them? And most importantly, why were they hidden for so long? We will explore not only the official versions, but also alternative theories, rumors whispered in the shadows. We will try to understand how Argentina, a country that aspired to democracy, became a haven for Nazi fugitives, and what consequences this had for its future. Get ready to be immersed in a world of intrigue, conspiracies, and possibly shocking revelations. This podcast is your chance to learn the truth that you won't find in history books. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. And remember, the truth often hides in the shadows. Chapter 1. Detection of Boxes. It all started with a routine audit of state archives. In the Department of Archives of Buenos Aires, while doing a routine inventory and systemization of documents, employees came across a strange anonymous request. The request claimed that the archives contained documents related to the arrival of Nazi refugees in Argentina. And, surprisingly, it turned out to be true. Deep in the archives, in an abandoned room, 83 boxes were stored. They were unmarked, had no markings, and their appearance in the archives was completely unexpected. At first, it was assumed that these were simply old, unused documents. But upon closer inspection, it became clear that this was not the case. The boxes were filled with papers written in German, English, and Spanish. They consisted mainly of reports, correspondence, photographs, and maps. Some of the documents mentioned names that immediately aroused suspicion. The names of high-ranking Nazi officials, military personnel, and scientists. Initially, the government tried to hide the discovery of the boxes, explaining it as routine archival work. But when information began to leak to the press, the situation got out of control. Urgent investigations were carried out, additional security measures were introduced in the archives, and it became clear that we were dealing with something very important and possibly dangerous. Chapter 2. Documents and Names. The contents of the boxes astounded experts. They contained reports on the activities of Nazi communities in Argentina, the construction of underground bunkers, the development of weapons and technology. Schemes concerning smuggling, financing, and connections with Nazi organizations in other countries were discovered. The correspondence contained plans for a new order in Latin America and for training passive soldiers for future conflicts. One document, found in one of the boxes, contained a photograph of a group of people gathered at a meeting. Among them were faces familiar to historians, former Wehrmacht officers, scientists, engineers. Particularly shocking were the documents concerning financing. They indicated that Nazi communities received support from major industrialists, bankers, and politicians. These people were obviously interested in preserving Nazi ideas and technologies, in creating a golden cage for themselves and their descendants. The correspondence mentioned the names of such figures as José Infantino, an influential banker, and Ramón Escobar, the head of a major industrial concern. These men were apparently part of a network that provided Nazi fugitives with resources and connections. Some of the names mentioned in the documents were linked to future dictators in Latin America, suggesting that the Nazi ideas that spread in Argentina had far-reaching consequences for the entire region. Chapter 3: Riddles and Secrets. Even though the documents were found, many questions remained unanswered. Why were these boxes hidden in archives for decades? Who brought them to Argentina? And most importantly, why were they hidden for so long? Various theories have been put forward. Some researchers believe that Nazi fugitives, aware of the danger, decided to hide the documents to prevent their disclosure. Others believe that the documents were hidden by the government to avoid an international scandal and preserve Argentina's image as a democratic country. Another version states that the documents were hidden by the secret services that controlled the Nazi communities and prevented their activities. However, this version does not explain why the documents were not discovered for so long. The archives revealed evidence of covert operations, surveillance of Nazi fugitives, and attempt to track them down and apprehend them. But these operations do not appear to have been successful. The investigation revealed evidence that some high-ranking officials were aware of the activities of Nazi communities, but chose to ignore them. This was probably due to political considerations and fear of radical movements. Chapter 4: Consequences and Questions. Third Reich documents in Argentina was a shocking revelation that forced a rethink of the country's history. It showed that Argentina, a country that was striving for democracy, had been linked to Nazi ideas and organizations for decades. However, the opening of the boxes did not lead to radical changes in the political and social life of Argentina. The authorities continued to deny the country's connection with the Nazi fugitives, and public opinion remained ambiguous. Despite this, the discovery of the boxes has become an incentive for further research. Scientists and journalists continue to study the documents, looking for new facts and evidence. The questions raised by this discovery remain open. What really happened in Argentina between the end of World War II and the early 1990s? What implications does this discovery have for future generations of Argentines? Third Reich documents in Argentina is a reminder that history is not always simple and straightforward. It is a reminder that even the most democratic countries can have dark sides that we prefer not to think about. Thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel so not to miss new releases. And remember, the truth always hides in the shadows.